All right, Hotep, everybody. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. So it is Wednesday, January 1st, 2020, and I'm here on location at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit. We are here for the last day of Kwanzaa, okay? So happy New Year to everybody. How's everybody doing? We made it through 2019, and I'm here at my vendor table. The Kwanzaa event today is from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's free and open to the public. It's celebrating the last principle of Kwanzaa, which is Imani, which means faith. All right. So some of you all saw my broadcast from Sunday night where we talked about the history of Kwanzaa. And let me come around to the other side here also. Some of you all saw my broadcast Sunday night where we talked about the history of Kwanzaa. And when we look at Imani, which means faith in Kiswahili, the seventh principle of the Nguzo Saba, Imani, means to believe with all of our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle, okay? So I've been here, this is my 7th day here. I was the keynote speaker for the Kwanzaa event on Friday, December 27th. Dr. Umar Johnson was the keynote speaker here on Sunday. This is free and open to the public. It's 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. today. Come on down, bring the family. This is the last day of Kwanzaa. We know a lot of people have today off. You saw Dr. Linda Jeffries and Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, his wife, were at a Kwanzaa event last night in the New York area. We shared that broadcast here on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and it was honoring Dr. John Henrik Clark and Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, okay, two of our great Grandmaster Scholar warriors. All right, so how's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. I'm going to show you my table quickly, and then we get into a little information here. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Kwanzaa. Now, also, you all can advertise with the African History Network, okay? Email me at customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com. Customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com to advertise with the African History Network. And then if you want to donate to the African History Network, we have Cash App now. So it's the AHN show, stands for the African History Network, the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show. And then also on PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, or at our website, africanhistorynetwork.com. And let me post the information here. How's everybody doing? How you doing, Sharon? How you doing? Who else we have here? Erica. All right. So who's been to a Kwanzaa event so far this Kwanzaa season? All right. Did you learn anything about our history? Now, when I did my Kwanzaa presentation, I actually did 2 presentations. I did one at St. Francis Missionary Baptist Church here in Detroit, and then I also did it at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. But I dealt with some of the African origins of Kwanzaa, and then I also dealt with some themes that I wanted to talk about as well, and dealt with this 400th year anniversary, 1619 to 2019. But even though August 20th, 1619 in Virginia did happen, those Africans on the White Lion slave ship coming to Point Comfort, it wasn't Jamestown, Virginia, it's actually near Hampton, Virginia. African people have been in this land going back tens of thousands of years. Who we talk about the Khoisan, who come from southern Africa and have the oldest DNA on the planet. Dr. David Imhotep talks about them in the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. They were here throughout this land. They're building the pyramid mounds. You have the mounds up and down the Mississippi River. There's a strong African presence that was here, and that gets totally left out when we try to shortchange our ancestors and lock our existence in this land that we call North America, or specifically the United States of America. We try to lock us into this 400-year timeline. When we look at Leif Erikson, we look at the Viking Leif Erikson. He comes to North America around 1000 AD. So you're trying to tell me that Africans circumnavigated the globe? We went into Europe, we went into Asia, we went all around the world, but the Vikings beat us here? And you're trying to tell us that we first came here conquered and shackled and changed by Europeans 400 years ago? August 20th, 1619 did happen, but we were here long before that, so we have to understand the chronology of history, okay? So, very quickly, let's see who we have here. And I only have one phone with me today, so I can't monitor my other phone. We've got Oscar. How you doing, Oscar? Malcolm, okay. Just a few people. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. You're not going to hear this type of information other places. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network. We have a sale going on. One more day, get 40% off orders of $100 or more at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can also donate to the African History Network through Cash App or PayPal. That helps support what we're doing. Okay, so very quickly here, Kwanzaa is an African American and Pan-African holiday. Okay, it's not a religious holiday, so it doesn't matter what religion you have or don't have, you can still participate in Kwanzaa. Now, some people ask me, now Kwanzaa is also a Pan-African holiday, it promotes Pan-Africanism. Some people ask me, do I have to give up chasing white women and eating pork to be a Pan-Africanist? Okay, so the answer is it would help. I mean, I guess you could still do that and be a Pan-Africanist, but it kind of defeats the purpose, okay? So, because I get that question. All right, but anyway, all right, so Kwanzaa is celebrated from December 26th through January the 1st, right? And one of the reasons why it's from December 26th to January the 1st is so we take these seven principles of the Nguzo Saba into the new year and practice them 365 days out of the year, as opposed to being super black for 7 days of the year and then going back to your old behaviors the rest of the year, okay? So the name Kwanzaa comes from the Kiswahili phrase Matunda ya Kwanzaa, Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits. And the origins of Kwanzaa are in the first fruit harvest celebrations of Africa, which it takes its name from. And so you'll see the actual name is Kiswahili. You'll see Swahili, but the actual name is Kiswahili. And Kiswahili is a Bantu language as well. You hear me talk about the film Black Panther. The word Wakanda is a Bantu language. It is a Bantu word. Wakanda is a real word. We see it in Native American languages like the Omaha Ponca language and the Sioux Indian language, but it's also a Bantu word as well. Habarigani, brother. All right. Imani. Okay, Aaron Adams. So Habarigani is the greeting in Kwanzaa. It's Kiswahili, which means what's the news? And the proper response would be whatever principle of the day that you're celebrating. So the day is the last day. So Imani would be the proper response. All right, so we see a connection between Kwanzaa and the film Black Panther. Kwanzaa helps reconnect African Americans to African history and culture. The film Black Panther helps reconnect African Americans to African history and culture, right? So Kwanzaa is a Pan-African language, which is the most widely spoken African language on the continent of Africa, and Kiswahili. Kiswahili is a Pan-African language, I should say. And Kiswahili is spoken by at least 50 million people. So there are an estimated 900 to 1,500 different languages spoken in Africa, but many distinct political units share a common or similar language, okay? Now, when we look at some of the African origins of Kwanzaa, because a lot of times people say, well, Kwanzaa is just made up, okay? Kwanzaa is just a made up holiday. Some people say Kwanzaa is a black Christmas or something like that, right? Which is not true at all. And when we look at Kwanzaa being created here in the U.S., we see Kwanzaa is created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karanga and members of the organization US in the midst of the Black Freedom Movement, okay? And I'm looking at my notes from the article that I wrote dealing with Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa reconnects African Americans to African culture for self-empowerment. So you see me posting this article on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, throughout the Kwanzaa season. This is an article I wrote a few years ago and I updated it this year. And it gives a lot of historical background information on Kwanzaa. Okay, so when we look at the African roots of Kwanzaa, so first fruit harvest celebrations have taken place in Africa, in African history, going back to ancient Kemet, okay, or what we call ancient Egypt, Nubia or Ta-Nehisi. We see it in different African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, amongst. We see it amongst the Zulu in South Africa, or the Amazulu in South Africa. We see it amongst the Matabele, the Thonga, like in southeastern Africa. So in ancient Kemet, the festival was called Pert-in-Men, P-E-R-T-I-N-M-I-N, Pert-in-Men, or the coming forth of men. Among the Zulu, it was called Umkhosi, U-M-K-H-O-S-I. Now, Umkhosi is celebrated, because I read some articles last year dealing with this. Umkhosi is celebrated around this same time of the year amongst the Zulu, traditionally, historically. Among the Swazi, it was called Inkwala. Among the Matabele, it was called Inkswala. Among the Ashanti in Ghana, it had various names. Among the Yoruba, it had various names depending upon the region, whether it's Oro Olofin or Odun Ijesu. The Ashanti and Yoruba festivals are festivals, the New Yam Festival, which is the time of harvesting the first yams. Now, even though these festivals have various names and are from different African societies or nations, they all focused around the harvesting of the first fruits and have similar values and practices. So I read so I've been doing Kwanzaa presentations for I think probably about 7 years now. And I read Dr. Karanga's book. That was one of the sources for my research on this. I read the book that he wrote dealing with the history of Kwanzaa, the African American holiday of Kwanzaa, and a celebration of family, community, and culture. Because Kwanzaa celebrates family, community, and culture. Family, community, and culture. So when you come to Kwanzaa events like here at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, it's a family-oriented event. There's African drumming, there's African singing, there are presentations. It helps promote African culture, history, us loving ourselves, working together, economic empowerment, cooperative economics, but it focuses on family. And there's a focus on the children. So you may see at the end, they have people get up on the stage and dance. You see children up on the stage dancing, things like this. My daughter, somebody told me my daughter was up on the stage. My daughter's 2 years old. She was up on the stage dancing with her mother. What night was that? I guess Saturday night, okay? So this is the focus of Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa helps to reconnect African Americans to African history and culture, but people celebrate Kwanzaa in other countries as well. They celebrate in the UK, they celebrate it in the Caribbean. Now, let's see who we have here. Okay, everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay, Stephen said, teach brother, how you doing, Stephen? Aaron, Doriel, okay. She said, Baragani, all right, Imani to everybody. My family celebrates Kwanzaa every year, preparing to go visit family and celebrate the last day of Kwanzaa, absolutely. But even though this is the last day of Kwanzaa, this is the first day of 2020. We have to take these principles into the new year, practice them all throughout the new year, and we got to get ready for this 2020 election, November 3rd, 2020. This is going to be a critical election, seriously. And we have to understand that politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties that adopt interpretation and enforcement. All these policies that are being debated, all these policies that are being enacted, whether we're talking about tariffs, whether we talk about increasing the minimum wage, because the bill passed the House of Representatives that Democrats pushed. It passed July of 2019 to raise the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour by the year 2025, but it's stuck in the Senate, being blocked by Mitch McConnell. There's about 275 bills, something like that, that are being blocked in the Senate by Mitch McConnell. They're waiting on him to bring it to the Senate floor for a debate. Okay, so we don't understand how this works. We don't understand the House of Representatives. We don't understand the U.S. Senate. So if you see my presentations, me talking about six principles of political self-defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans, I deal with a lot of this in that presentation, because I don't just study history, I study politics and law as well. Very quickly here, if we look at I've talked about this in the past. AtlantaBlackStar.com has a really good article, 10 pieces of evidence that prove black people sailed to the Americas long before Columbus. 10 pieces of evidence that prove black people sailed to the Americas long before Columbus. And once again, when, a lot of times when I do my presentations, I have to spend 20 or 30 minutes. I got to spend the first 20 or 30 minutes debunking a lot of nonsense that people are coming to the presentation with that is just false. When I did my presentation Friday night here at the Charles H. Wright Museum for Kwanzaa, I was talking about the Amistad slave ship, okay? And the case of the Amistad, which was a U.S. Supreme Court case in 1841. And many people saw the movie Amistad, but they don't understand why those Africans, Joseph St. Q and the other Africans, they don't understand why they were set free, why they won their court case. The reason why they were set free and why they won that court case is, number one, it was illegal for those Africans to be captured in the first place. They were captured in Sierra Leone, okay? They were captured by the Spanish. It was illegal for them to be captured because it violated all of the existing treaties through the different countries at that time, like the Anglo-Spanish treaties of 1817 and 1835. How you doing, sister? And what they did was, because you had the various European nations who were outlawing the international transatlantic slave trade, they could still have slaves in their respective countries and in their colonies. Just like here in the U.S. The U.S. abolished the international transatlantic slave trade January 1st, 1808, because the bill passed Congress March 2nd, 1807. And the reason why they abolished the international transatlantic slave trade in this country is because it was stipulated in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution. But we haven't read the Constitution, so we don't know this, we don't understand law, and we haven't studied these court cases, so we don't understand any of this. That court case for the Amistad is on the National Archives website, archives.gov. Why? How do I know? Because I went there and studied it, and I read some of the original court documents, because they had it at the website. The reason why those Africans were set free, one, it was illegal for them to be captured in the first place. Two, it was illegal for that Amistad ship to come into U.S. waters. Because when you study the case, when the ship came into the U.S. waters, it was captured by U.S. naval ships, because it was illegal for Africans to come into this country as slaves after January 1st, 1808. January 1st, 1808. So they go to court. And this case goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. One of their defense attorneys was John Quincy Adams, who was the former 6th president of the United States. He was one of their defense attorneys. They're going to win their freedom in the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that, one, they were never slaves, and two, they ruled that they had the right to use force, to use violence, to defend themselves on that ship, to have that mutiny. Okay, that's a landmark Supreme Court case that we don't even understand. And that ties into the U.S. Constitution as well, but we haven't read it. We have to go to LOC.gov, which is the Library of Congress website, LOC.gov, and read the U.S. Constitution, and then read the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers give a group of 85 essays and letters that John Jay and Alexander Hamilton and others wrote to newspapers advocating for the ratification of the Constitution, because the Constitution was signed September 17, 1787, but it had to go through the ratification process in 1788, which meant it had to be voted on and adopted by 3/4 of the state legislatures at the time, okay? So we don't understand any of this stuff. All right, but very quickly here, let's look at this guy. I got to get out of here. How you doing, sister? You all right? Yeah. All right, take a look there. A lot of stuff's on sale today. I'll be over there. This is the last day of Kwanzaa. This is the last day of Kwanzaa. Well, you get some other stuff too. I'll take care of you. Don't worry about that. But when we look at this, Captain John Smith in 1607 in Virginia talked about being captured by a group of black Indians. When you read The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep, around page 67 or so, he talks about this. If we look at Egyptian artifacts in North America, Dr. David Imhotep in The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence said, quote, Egyptian artifacts found across North America from the Algonquin writings on the East Coast to the artifacts in Egyptian places in the Grand Canyon, end quote, are all signs of an early arrival in the Americas by Africans. Now, this is before 1619. Not only that, in 1526, the Spanish had taken Africans into the territory we did. It's about 100 Africans, and they're going to have a slave revolt after about 3 weeks and overthrow the Spanish, and they're going to disappear. Okay, and that Spanish colony they were trying to set up is going to fail. I've done a whole presentation dealing with that. Before 1619, there was 1526. Okay, so this is also paired, going back to ancient Kemet, this is also paired with a much earlier account of black people with incredible skills at sea. Back in 445 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote King Ramses III leading a team of Africans at sea with astounding seafaring and navigational skills. Together, both accounts would point to Africans sailing over to the New World before Columbus. Now, it's important to understand that Columbus never comes to the land that we call the United States of America. The closest Columbus comes here is Cuba, which is about 90 miles away. When you look at it in my presentations, I show people where Columbus went. History.com, which is the official website of the History Channel. If you go there, search for Christopher Columbus, they show you where he went. He never comes to this land we call the United States of America. He goes into South America, he goes into South America, he goes into Central America, he goes into Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Honduras, Panama, Jamaica. He goes into Central America, South America a little bit, and the Caribbean, okay? The United States of America. So this is another myth that we really have to correct. Not that he discovered America, that he never came to this land we call the United States of America. All right. If we look at this other example here, let me pick out another one here. Okay, the accounts of other European explorers. Christopher Columbus wasn't the only European explorer who made note of an African presence in the Americas upon his arrival. Historians revealed that at least a dozen other explorers, including Vasco Nunez de Balboa, also made record of seeing quote-unquote Negroes when they reached the New World. The accounts match up with the reports from the natives in Mexico. Nicholas Leon, an eminent Mexican authority, recorded the oral traditions of his people and ultimately kept track of a key piece of evidence that black people made it to the New World far before their European counterparts. His reports reveal accounts from natives saying, quote, the oldest inhabitants of Mexico were blacks. The existence of blacks and giants is commonly believed by nearly all the races of our Sail, S-A-I-L, and in their various language that had words to designate them, end quote. Okay, so that's just a little background information here, and South America. They also talk about ancient African skeletons discovered in the New World. Okay, ancient African skeletons. I'll wrap up with this. There have been many instances of archaeologists discovering skulls and skeletons that they believed clearly belonged to people of African descent. Polish professor Andrzej, A-N-D-R-Z-E-J, Wersinski, revealed the discovery of African skulls at Olmec sites in Tlatilco, T-L-A-T-I-L-C-O, Cerro de las Mesas, and Monte Alban, A-L-B-A-N. Even more ancient African skeletons that would clearly predate Columbus' arrival in the Americas were discovered throughout Central America and South America, with some even being unearthed in what is now California. Okay, so this is a deep, rich history. Okay, so check out the article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, 10 pieces of evidence that prove black people sailed to the Americas long before Columbus. And then read The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep also. All right. Okay, who else we have here? All right. Yeah, Imani is the principle for the day. So once again, the day's last principle, Imani, which means faith, to believe with all of our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. I say the leaders that deserve it, because some leaders don't deserve it, okay? If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network We have Cash App now. You can donate through Cash App, the AHN show, $, the AHN show, through Cash App. You can donate 15, 25, 50, 100, whatever it is, to help support the African History Network, help support the research. This helps us finance the Sunday night show, stay on the air, pay the bills, etc., or through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Right on the homepage, click on the donate button. And then my DVD lectures are there, so you can, at the website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, so you can order our DVD lectures also. We have bundle packs. We have the Black Migration 1619 to 20 bundle pack. At our website, it includes 6 of my latest presentations, and it includes Black Migration 1619 to 2019, where I get into a lot of this information. And what a lot of people don't know, here's some of my DVD lectures here. What a lot of people don't know is that codified slave laws did not exist in the 13 British colonies in 1619, when those 29 Africans are coming into Point Comfort, and they're going to be exchanged for food and water and supplies, okay? They're going to be put into a form of indentured servitude because codified slave laws don't exist. The whole way that slavery evolves in the 13 colonies is different than how we think it evolved. So we have to understand this history chronologically, okay? All right, so let's take a look here at presentations. We have, if you come down here today, we have special pricing here at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Okay, for some people, we got the Light of Ancient Egypt Awakens the African Mind. We got a few documentaries, Elementary Genocide 2. We got some of the documentaries from Lamar and Ronnie Tyler dealing with African American marriages. We got my presentations dealing with Juneteenth. I deal with the little known history of why African Americans switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, because 95% of us don't understand that history. 6 principles of political self-defense. Ancient Africans in America before Native Americans, Columbus, or slavery, from Kemet to Wakanda. These are all lectures I've done basically in 2019, most of them. Okay, this deals with when black men dominated horse racing. I've got the presentation I did dealing with the film Harriet as well, and breaking down the film dealing with separating fact from fiction. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So to understand the transatlantic slave trade, we have to understand the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. If you don't deal, we can't start in 1441. The transatlantic slave trade starts in 1441 with the Portuguese sailing around Africa, going into not Ghana, not Sierra Leone, not Niger, not Mali, but they go into Mauritania, and they're going to take this thing is about 12 Africans or so out of Mauritania and take them back to Portugal. This is going to begin the transatlantic slave trade, but the Portuguese have been dealing with Africans for hundreds of years because of the Moors going into the Iberian Peninsula, which is right above Morocco. Today, the Iberian Peninsula is known as Spain and Portugal. They go in 711 AD. The Portuguese have been dealing with them. There have been conflicts, wars, things like this, and the Moors are going to be defeated. They're going to be overthrown. Some of them are going to be enslaved. The transatlantic slave trade is a continuation of those fights and conflicts between the African Moors and Europeans. It's a continuation of that. They were already dealing with the African people, and the Moors are intermixing into the European population, changing the complexion of Europeans. This is how you get somebody like Queen Charlotte Sophia, who was the wife of King George III. Queen Charlotte Sophia was mixed race. She was of African descent. She was of Moorish descent on her mother's side. King George III was the king that the 13 British colonies are revolting against and fighting against during the American Revolution. King George III's wife was of African descent, but she was very light-skinned. You're going to have these people throughout. You're going to have these people throughout European societies, because the Moors go all throughout Europe. They're not just in Spain and Portugal. They're in Prague, Czechoslovakia. They're in England, France, Germany, Austria. They're in Holland. They go all throughout Europe, and to various extents, they Africanize European culture to various extents. Okay, so then we have we got my presentation dealing with the film Black Panther that always blows people away. That's almost a 3-hour presentation that I did showing how the film Black Panther relates to African history, African culture, African language, things like this. Some of these titles we have on digital download. Some of my lectures we have available on digital download. You can email me at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com with any questions. We have orders shipping out tomorrow also, January 2nd. My presentation dealing with the history of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's a 2.5-hour lecture I did. We got great African women in history, the mothers of civilization. Also, this is a deep one here. For some reason, a lot of people are not interested in this one. This is a deep one. I break down a whole lot of history and politics people don't know. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. And this is my banner here. You see my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Great Black Women in History. That's a series I have. Okay, so we got to get out of here. So come on down, those in the Detroit area, come on down today, January 1st, 2020, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, 315 East Warren Avenue for the last day of Kwanzaa. Imani, which means faith. This is free and open to the public. Bring the family. It's going to be a good time. Come to the African Marketplace. Be sure to come to my vendor table for the African History Network. And we have a lot of information here for you, a lot of my DVD lectures. And you come, those that listen to my radio shows, see my broadcast, come meet me as well. All right? Okay. Let's see here. Mark said, knowledge is power. Let's get our houses in order. Break the true history of America and break the Willie Lynch syndrome. Oh yes. Well, it's easy to break the Willie Lynch syndrome because Willie Lynch never historically existed. So it's very easy to break the Willie Lynch syndrome. We just need to understand that Willie Lynch never historically existed. The Willie Lynch letter is a fraud. Their words in the Willie Lynch letter didn't exist in the early 18th century. I've interviewed Professor Manu Ampim, A-M-P-I-M, about this a few times, and he wrote a book called Death to the Willie Lynch Speech. And at his website, manuampim.com, A-M-P-I-M, he has 3 essays called Death to the Willie Lynch Speech. And he goes through methodically and totally dissects the Willie Lynch letter and shows how it is a fraud. Okay? All right, guys, we got to get out of here. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. And then African-American business owners, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Because we have a current promotion going on. This is going on for one more day or so. You can advertise with the African History Network. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Okay? And we take your 30-second and 60-second commercial. I can put together a commercial for you, put it into the audio podcast of my broadcast on our Sunday night show, the African History Network show. And then also I can promote your video on my Facebook Live broadcast, and we put that on YouTube as well. Email me at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, and we can get you up and running today. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.